Dobrý den, dámy a pánové, já jsem Sara Polak a vítám vás u dalšího dílu Technology Foresightu. Zase budeme přepínat do angličtiny a budeme se bavit o obraně, biometrických datech a všechno mezi tím, protože tady máme velice multioborového, nadaného Thomase Schaldacha z Thalesu. Thomas, hello, welcome.
Hello, thank you for the welcome.
Thank you very much for being here. Well, I know that this is like more fashion related rather than tech related, but when I first saw you in the corridor, you've got an amazing belt and an amazing backpack. So I really kind of valued that. And then we kind of got onto the conversation that we're both nerds. And I really appreciate when I asked you, is your company named after Thales of Miletos, who was one of the 7 sages of Greece? You were like, I hope so. So that gave me a lot of warmth that tech people also appreciate ancient history like I do.
Yes, it's very interesting actually.
Yeah, he was the, if you want to Wikipedia him, he's called like the father of science or something. So he's the kind of like backbone of our Western understanding of science. But speaking of which, what is it that you do in Thales? Because it's a lot of stuff. So help crystallize it for us, please.
I am doing also a lot of stuff, but based on my job title, I'm a software engineering manager and I'm leading 2 teams. I'm leading one team that is primarily focused on technical pre-sales. And the other one that is a support team to help other teams to migrate legacy or other code into the cloud. And I'm doing this in the identity business line from Thales, part of identity and biometrics. And we work a lot with governments on this. So e-government is one of the topics that we work with, and
Yeah. Because it's interesting, when I was preparing for our interview, I was kind of like researching your company furiously, and I was thinking, oh my God, am I missing something? Because there was so many different things that you do. You mentioned that Thales is a French company and that it's very much focused on the defense there. But here, as you mentioned, you're looking more at the biometric data and at e-government. Your own journey throughout Thales was very kind of how would I say it, rich and fruitful. So you started off as a student, right? And then you migrated through a lot of different roles. Is that right?
Exactly. I started as a student, actually a student developer. So I was studying here and started to work as a Java developer, Java Enterprise. And I started to work on a software that is used to personalize passports. So to put the data in the chip inside of the passport. And then I moved on for the next system that does slightly different, manages where the passports are in the world. And then I moved on again because it's important that you move on after some time, because if you always stay in the same position, then you cannot grow, right? Yeah. So moved on again, and I ended in the e-government business, where I came in touch with digital credentials. Which was very nice, and I was contributing a bit to that, and that's where I'm a bit now.
Nice, because we've had in previous episodes of Technology Foresight, and please have a look at them. We discussed a lot of things like ethical hacking, penetration testing, cybersecurity. So e-government is a very we all bloody need it with all the paperwork that, especially in the Czech Republic, you need to do anything with the government. But as kind of like things progress, we've had obviously the COVID pandemic, so there was a lot of an increasing discussion about also the security of the data. I understand that you can't necessarily speak about details, but what are the main things that you focus on in terms of identity and proving it?
Okay, I need to think how to say that so that I can say it. But in fact, we do a lot of things in terms of privacy, so data privacy. So as a user, I think it's very important that you are in charge of your data, right? Yeah. So if I want to go to the club, I want to only disclose the information that I have to. So we have with this new standard, new ISO standard for digital credentials, we can selectively disclose, for example, only that you are of age when you go into the club, but not who you are or where you're from. Yeah. So this is definitely something in this direction. Otherwise, yes, of course, we're using a lot of cryptography to verify and cipher. So
yeah, it's really interesting, because I was just having a discussion earlier today how, of course, Europe, which has the GDPR regulations, incoming regulations about artificial intelligence and the kind of high-risk systems, which will be very much focused on the biometric side of data as well. Thales is all over the world, if I understand correctly. Like, is this kind of digital identity aspect or the product very much kind of Europe focused, or like do you do it all over the world?
No, that's a worldwide thing. In fact, we have a very nice customer on the other side of the globe in Australia, in Queensland, and we're working very focused on that one. So that's one of the very nice ones. And actually, there's an initiative from the European Union that all member states need to eventually, I think very soon, implement their own digital identity wallet, and this is going to be very nice, and I think it's going to be very cool for the citizens of Europe, especially the people that are inside of the European Union and live abroad, like me, for example. And I think it's going to be somewhere everywhere in the world used.
Yeah, and hopefully it'll make things a lot easier. You mentioned when we were talking in the kitchen earlier that like one of the reasons why you love your job, and you are a great ambassador for Thales, so look after this man, that like one day you can be working on e-government and the next day you can like switch to basically like building rocket boosters. This interests me. Do you guys work in space presumably as well?
Yes, we have a department in space. I think it's in Spain, to be honest. So yeah, this is of course this is one of the great opportunities when you work for such a big company, right? I mean, you have mobility. So now we're here, but okay. So if you wanted to, after some time in your position, and you want to move on, you want to do something entirely different, you can. Yeah. And this is one of the cool features, I think.
Yeah. I think one of the things that especially this Faculty of Informatics is really good at doing, and something that Czech Republic and the kind of local academic ecosystem is often, unfortunately, not so great at, is the kind of merging of the academic sphere and the industry, that there's often very much of a gap. So you started off as a student. What did you study, and like how did you get into industry? It's like I'm interested in the story.
Well, in fact, back in Germany, I studied computer science. Actually, it was called European Computer Science Studies because you have 1 year abroad. Right. Okay, the final year is abroad, which I did in Finland via Erasmus, which was very nice. And here I studied Master of Cybersecurity, I think it was called. And it was really interesting. And but as a student, you need money, right? So. Yeah. And I needed some, and so I looked in where is it, jobs.cz, I think is the portal, right? Yeah. So I saw this advertisement from Gemalto. Back then we were still Gemalto, and I was thinking, okay, Java programmer, that sounds interesting. I was good in Java in the university, so in the first year, so let's do that. So I applied, and I actually had an interview, and it was a very interesting interview, and I got in touch with all these passports and ID cards and these interesting identity products, and I knew Gemalto only from the VPN tokens. So
nice. And now you're here.
Now I'm here.
And this is the pinnacle of your career.
Exactly,
in this
it's
chair.
amazing.
I really like one of the things that you mentioned is that you're very much a proponent of the person being in charge of their own data. We're currently doing an initiative about digitalizing healthcare in the Czech Republic, which is very difficult because on one hand you want to gather as much as data as possible about the patient to like make sure that you can basically treat them better in a personalized way. But there's a huge psychological pushback from the general public because they don't understand what will be done with the data, whether the government can look after it, etc., which are often very valid fears. Do you come across that in your job as well? Like, is there a lot of, for example, evangelization that you have to do with your customers or even the public?
Yeah, but sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the thing is, there's so the standard European countries, Western European countries, they are always like this. I am German, I want my data to be in Germany, and I want it to be, looked after.
Yeah.
And I can understand this. I mean, everybody wants it like this. But I can also relate in the other direction because it is so hard sometimes to I mean, especially I've noticed it here. We had to go from one doctor to another, and you had to go to a third doctor to get some data, some kind of blood picture or whatever. Yeah. And it was really complicated. You need to get one signature here, then you drive through the whole of Prague, get another signature there, and then you drive over there, which can all be either an email. Well, of course, that will be super insecure, but in essence, that's what you want, right? You just want less bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And this is the nice thing about these kind of systems. And I'm really looking forward. I hope that this will be, a huge success.
Yeah. So this is your kind of primary goal right now. You mentioned Australia. So after Australia, you mentioned to me in the kitchen that you became a manager in the company. So this is the key thing that you're managing, is to make sure that the digital identity gets implemented and kind of like scaled as well.
Yes, because I would like to see, this implemented across, a lot of countries, because I think this will bring us as a society quite forward.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The amount of we were discussing this actually, and we were having a bit of like a roundtable discussion, and there was a doctor who used to work in, you mentioned Finland, but he was in Sweden, and just the Nordic countries have an amazing approach that everything's very like centralized, digitalized, like one software, very easy. And then all the Czech doctors were like, "Yep, we've got like 50 softwares per hospital. It's pretty difficult." One of the things I wanted to also ask about, because so Thales obviously does a lot of different stuff, and it kind of sits on the kind of border between like research and development and then the implementation. You said sometimes that you work a lot with the intellectual property department, where you can like patent some shower thoughts, if I'm to put it metaphorically. How do you keep ahead of the game, like when you're spread so thin across so many verticals? So like, how does Thales like cooperate with the academic side of things? How do they make sure that they get the patents of like the latest developments?
I think we have really a lot of good people. I mean, we're I think 85,000 people worldwide.
Oh wow!
So we're
okay.
quite big. Yeah.
Wow.
And I think here in Prague we're like, I don't know, 200 people, maybe more. And there are some departments that are really on the edge on research, and there are some departments that are just focusing on bringing it to the customers. And so that's also a nice thing, actually, that you can traverse these paths. If you want, you can go closer to the customers, or if you want, you can go deeper into research. Possibilities are there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned customers and the fact that you deal with pre-sales. I remember from my own days in startups that the pre-sales part is really crucial, because you have to make sure that the sales team doesn't promise something that doesn't exist, and then the technical team doesn't get stuck with trying to deliver something that cannot be done. What are like I understand that every customer is different, and again, you can't talk about the details, but is there like a kind of unifying, maybe like lack of knowledge from the customer side, or something that they misunderstand about technologies that you keep coming up against?
No, every customer is really good, and
they're lovely, and we love them.
Generally, there are some few things that I sometimes find a bit worrisome. In fact, it is and we discussed this a bit earlier already, because basically the data is located somewhere, right? But if it is sufficiently ciphered, then it shouldn't really matter, right? And this is sometimes something that creates a lot of friction, because if I have something now stored in AWS in Ireland, and it's sufficiently ciphered, then it is inside of the European Union, so it should be fine, right? And if I need to go even closer, okay, I can deploy this all in AWS in Frankfurt if if I want to. There's no region in Czech Republic yet for AWS, sadly, but it should be enough, right?
Yeah.
It is encrypted, and nobody should be able to decipher it. But still, sometimes governments like to have these kind of data on their premises, which I can understand sometimes. But it overall gives us, especially in Europe, I think, it leads to some problems in terms of availability and the SLAs. This is why our applications in Europe are so slow. This is why they are like, the US is much more forward, and even there, okay, so these cloud companies, they are US-based companies, so probably less issues, and they have their own government clouds. I would like to see something like this in Europe, so that we can, go forward with this.
Yes, and this is definitely a recurring theme that I'm hearing like all over the market. And it's also that the European market in the technology aspect is sometimes stagnating in general, because there's a lot of regulations, again, which I like understand. You want to make sure that everything's like nice in check, that the technology doesn't get abused. but at the same time, like we are being outcompeted so severely by these markets because they're just ready and they're so much more forward.
Yes.
By the way, just so I don't have the eye of Sauron just on the customers, you mentioned that you were kind of like leading the like transferring of some of like the legacy systems onto the cloud within Thales itself. How does that work for such a massive company? Like, what did you do? What's the process like?
The process is hack and slash, basically. No, that's a bit brutal. But we go and we see what is there, what can be split apart. You know, the key in the cloud is resilience, right? If you have a system in the cloud, then it needs to be aware of the fact that it can be shut down at any time, and that means that you need to cope with that. If there's a request coming and the server is shut down in the middle, well, you need to somehow recover. And this resilience needs to be done first, and it's not there in many of the old systems because there was no big distribution because it was all just one big block.
Yeah.
And so this is one of the things. And then I put a lot of emphasis on automation because I think everything that can be automated should be automated. And personally, my team has, for example, the goal that a new product needs to be deployed within one click. So one click for a full product deployment, which is a lot. And it should not take longer than a day. I mean,
Nice.
So rolling out one new customer within one day, when it's complete new system in a new specific area, then I think that's quite a good achievement.
Yeah, definitely.
And we managed this, and I'm really proud of the guys. So that was a huge achievement.
Wow, congratulations! That is an amazing achievement because I love your mantra that everything that can be automated should be automated. Because I do see sometimes pushback from kind of like the non-technical populace that people find the kind of ritual of doing something very kind of comforting, and then when you say it's okay, it can be automated, they actually find that displeasing that it can happen quicker and faster and that they don't have to manually do it. So that there's a big kind of psychological shift, I think, that needs to happen as well with automation.
Yeah, definitely.
So because you are a star example of someone who kind of like went from academia into industry, there's a lot of, I mean, the school year is starting very soon, and the students are sometimes wondering, you know, startups used to be like very sexy. Everyone goes into startups, which is like great. I am a big fan of startups, but it's important to like help the students like navigate and understand the types of companies that are there, and also like the tips of what they can do already during their studies, so that when they get out finally, they realize that they can't actually do anything in the real world, that they have a lot of theory, but they want to do practice as well, of course. Again, this faculty is actually very good at bridging that gap, but is there any advice that you would give to the students on what they can do to prepare themselves better?
So if you start as a developer, for example, then code. Really, this is the most important thing. You know, if you don't do it, you will not, you know, get better, or you know. So what I like a lot is doing hackathons. This is you know, when I still had a lot of more time, I was doing this as a hobby. You know, with a few friends, you just go and there are some online hackathons nowadays because of COVID. So there's you know, huge step forward. But there was, for example, one a few years ago, Hack Prague.
Yes,
it was amazing. There was I don't know, there were like 100 different teams, and they were all competing, and it was completely open bar. It was absolutely nice.
Yeah.
And those challenges, those are the ones that let you grow, I think.
Yeah.
So, but of course, this goes for other practices as well, right? If you are into AI, then you need to build something in this direction so that you can, you know, practice.
Yes.
Because the problem is when you want to go and find a job, people will ask you if you have experience, and that's where it goes, right? So that's why I also like to promote those student jobs, because if you start already during university, it's much easier for you. Yeah. You already have experience when you're done, and you can either stay because you have already, you know, a safe place, or you can move on and go somewhere where you like it better.
Yeah, but practice in the field, basically.
Yes.
And yeah, hackathons are great. And if you want to have a look at the website, we've done a uni hack. So it was about reinventing the education system, which is a small task. But even things like Kaggle, where you can do like various challenges and things like that, you can even make money out of it. So, you know, you can spend it on
Really? Okay.
yeah, on books, not beer. Yeah. And because I can tell that you're incredibly passionate about what you do. I, for example, I love archaeology and I keep doing it and I keep reading about it. Is there anything that like you really, really love that you would either like to see more of in your job or like do as a project, or maybe that you do like a side quest?
I'm not so sure actually, because I really like what I'm doing, so it's really nice. But innovating is always something that I really like. So I like to see something moving forward. I like to see when things get better for people. So probably also the reason why I'm still in e-government business in the end. But I like these kind of innovations that touch everyday's everyone's life. So if it can just be a tiny bit better, because you don't have to do some kind of lots of bureaucracy on your way to work, or then it's already getting better.
Yeah, definitely. And I've got one last question for you. I've got a friend my best friend in the British Army, and we talk a lot about like the changing role of the state, especially like with the dawn of technology, and it's changing definitely. It's morphing into a different beast, especially with like COVID coming in as well. There's a lot of different processes, a lot of different evolutionary pressures on the traditional institutions. What would you say that during COVID was like the biggest change that was precipitated in the area of tech, that suddenly maybe governments woke up and thought, crap, we need to do this? Easy question.
Easy question, right? Basically, there was a huge hike in e-government, I would say, because a lot of people were just, okay, so I cannot go to the office to request my new ID card or my new passport. I need to do it online.
Yeah.
And a lot of governments understood this and did it, and are still understanding, in fact, and are still working on this. And I mean, on one hand, I think it was really interesting to see how quickly these COVID passports were rolled out, right? I mean, although I do not understand how people could verify them, like, with their eyes, but okay, that's a different...
QR codes, right?
Yes, they must have.
Yeah.
But so this was amazingly fast, right? So I think you can clearly see that some of the governments are already working on similar things. And so this is nice.
Yeah, I agree. This is kind of like it almost feels like a blasphemous thing to say, but like from the point of tech and scaling it in society and actually creating stuff that works for the everyday person, COVID has been a blessing in disguise in that regard, that it really pushed the change.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, also the fact that, now you are more you have more availability to do work from home, You're way more flexible. And this is really nice to have a bit more work-life balance and a bit more time with your family. So I think this is amazing.
Exactly, especially in your case with a wonderful wife and a wonderful dog. I mean, like, who would want to be at home? I completely understand. Thomas, thank you so much. This has been, I think for you guys, if you're listening to this, like, you can see the beautiful kind of connection of academia and industry, and you can see that there are so many various companies out there that do such sexy, amazing things. And I think Thomas is a great ambassador for this. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you, and all the best in your e-government efforts, because I can imagine it's an uphill struggle, but thank you for doing it, because we very much need it.
Thanks.
Thank you, and see you guys with the next episode. Take care. Bye.